Greetings everyone, and welcome to LEGO Rewind, where we take another look at old retired LEGO themes. Today's theme was still running when LEGO Rewind began, and had only just retired when I first touched on it in the Knights Kingdom Rewind. Nexo Knights is a 2016 LEGO castle line that stood out from other castle lines by asking what if castle was also space? They didn't go to space, but there's a lot of space DNA, especially Ice Planet with all that blue and translucent reddish orange. I used to think this was one of those old kingdoms like 1,000 years later. Turns out it was only 100. Yeah, in 100 short years, a couple generations, these people went from old school swords and sorcery to smartphones, robot butlers and chefs, bridges made of solid light, jet horses, giant mechs, mobile castles on tank treads. And instead of magical enchantments strengthening the knight's armor, weapons, and shields, programs called Nexo powers are downloaded into them, a new form of magic called technomancy. Jeez, it's no wonder the fashion and architecture haven't changed. The technology leapfrogged the culture. There's even a movie called The Golden Castle referencing the original Yellow Castle set, including costumes based on those early minifigs. And Murloc, the kingdom's top wizard who created technomancy a century ago, is a dead ringer from Magisto, before he's just dead and becomes a computer program. This futuristic twist, advanced technology with medieval trappings, alienated more traditional fans at the time, who'd gone a whole 2 years since the last castle wave. Gosh, that sounds not that bad these days. You could brush off the Golden Castle and Murloc's design as homages, but with a timeline so short, I view Nexo Knights as a sequel to those classic castle themes, at least a spiritual one. Some have also pointed to the multiple helmet styles spanning different real-life centuries, implying an even more compressed timeline. But I think those are just there to make the troops more varied. Nexo Knights ran for almost 3 years, and each year is distinct enough to be somebody's favorite. Some prefer year 1 for its slightly more rustic feel, still not too high concept. Others prefer the last wave to the point they think that's where the theme should have led with. I flip back and forth between all three. There are times when each aesthetic is my favorite. And just that each one is so different and enjoyed most by someone is its own accomplishment. Year 1 is kind of a trip. 100 years ago, the realm was threatened by the evil wizard Monstrux and his monster army. Murloc and the Wizard Order defeated him and sealed his power in 12 books. Now, in the age of technomancy, a failing court jester, Jestro, frees the Book of Monsters containing Monstrux's spirit from Murloc's library, feeding it the other evil books scattered across the kingdom to restore Monstrux's power and summon more monsters from its pages. Monstrux goes through a few other vessels throughout the theme, intent on transferring to Jestro's body for a time, and then claim Morrington, leader of the Nexo Knights. Get it? Like Claymore? The other knights are Macy, Axel, Lance, and Aaron. Cheesy as the weapon names are, I appreciate consistent theming. Just look at all my characters named after fish. So the conflict of Year 1 sets is between the futuristic knights with all their fancy technology and somewhat more old school lava orcs. There's a ton of characters on the monsters side, giving them a Freak of the Week vibe, and the knights are rated by their own personal robots and the kingdom's soldiery. While mostly sticking to blue, light gray, and trans-orange, each knight's vehicle is accented by some of that knight's signature color. Red for Macy, lime green for Aaron, azure for Clay, and Lance's white gives him the strongest Ice Planet vibes. Some vehicles share the weapons motif. Jets that look like swords, crossbows, and maces. You can hold and shoot and swing them around like real weapons. Like, you can't tell me this doesn't go hard. I also like the animal crests, like those represent their houses. There were a ton of sets right out the gate. Big ones, small ones, polybags, foil packs, army packs. So many ways to populate a table. I haven't even gone to the Nexo powers themselves. This 5-sided modified tile is used in so many sets these days as roof shingles or giant scales, it's easy to forget it started life as mainly a Nexo Knights piece, which along with the sharp pointed wedges, windscreens, and little diamonds, all gave Nexo Knights a then new visual identity. These printed collectibles were a toys to life thing like Skylanders or Amiibo. Most sets include at least a couple that you could equip on a shield and or scan into a mobile app game to beat up monsters with. I personally like to equip the larger builds with a power that feels most appropriate even if I have to pull it from another set or bricklink it, and I try not to use the same power twice. There were too many in-game to represent in set form immediately, but we got a good amount of them, especially on these ultimate armor packs, each knight covered in their own translucent color instead of the usual orange. Also some lava monsters, and Robin, a young knight in training and mechanic who made all this stuff for the knights. Each of these ultimate minifigures came with a few Nexo powers, a stand to store ones not in use, and actual builds representing all three in action, which feels like a reversed Toys to Life gimmick, creating a physical space from a game. That's 30 loadouts without mixing and matching between characters, which you can totally do. You know, right up till I started LEGO Rewind, I was never much of a minifig guy. I've also never been a playset guy. Even the playsets I do like, once I've built them, they just sit there or go into storage. They're not exactly easy to pick up and swoosh around. I'm more of a vehicle / mech / creature guy. I grew up with lines like Bionicle and gravitate towards builds that feel alive. I couldn't understand people who'd mainly buy a set for specific minifigs because to me the whole appeal of LEGO was the build. And my builds were characters in their own right, minifigs just a thing to fill the seats. Well, it was lines like Nexo Knights that finally made me understand the appeal of minifigs, by putting out some of the most over-the-top minifig designs ever. In fact, between all the knights, guards, robots, monsters, small builds, armor, weapons, and Nexo powers, I'd say Nexo Knights is LEGO's best tabletop role-playing game. I can't be alone on this. These characters are just begging for a stat sheet. The customizability is insane and has yet to be topped by any theme since. It feels like there are so many stories you could tell with these elements that LEGO didn't. The show's first year is decent, but not very good. I like the first theme song. It's a bit moody, very techy, appropriate lyrics. It feels like Nexo Knights. The second opening goes with anything. I can't even play without copyright junk cause it's like a normal song. It's painfully generic. Kinda like the show. Almost every episode is the same thing. Go to a town that looks like every other town, fight the same monsters, wait for Murloc to send Nexo scan. Power up, beat the monsters easily, rinse and repeat. Also they quote Monty Python's The Holy Grail a lot.
It's just a mech room!
Stay here and guard this place until we get back.
Right. Never leave this place, even if you come back.
No. Guard this place until we come back.
Right.
Huh? What are you doing?
We're coming with you.
The show's greatest strengths are the dialogue and voice acting. The characters are slightly more adult than we were used to seeing, but most are so one-note and hyperbolic it kinda loops back around to become funny, if mean-spirited thanks to the performances. Some are deceptively complex, like Clay. He may seem a little flat through a neurotypical lens, but if you see him as autistic like I do, he makes so much sense and I love him. Macy's a princess who doesn't want to be a princess, at least not the kind her father wants her to be. The show makes it more about the pageantry, like they think that's all kids will understand, but I like to think it's the pressure of ruling a whole kingdom someday that she dreads most, and being a knight is a temporary escape from that. I also appreciate Prim's snobby rich boy Lance Richmond adopting a pig and treating her like a princess. It's really cute, and she even appears in a set eventually. And Monstrux is a great villain. His banter with Jestro is so entertaining, you might feel like he's stringing you along. And the first year's last few episodes are actually really good because of Jestro. He does stand up with a book as a scheme, and it goes great, but he still thinks he can't be funny without his joke book. The knights pull up expecting a fight, and find themselves enjoying Jestro's act, and even visit his trailer to say they're proud of him. Even when the book goes missing and Jestro has a meltdown, the knights give him more encouragement, and yeah, this moment made me emotional in a way most LEGO doesn't. Jestro's redemption is so special to behold, it feels dirty when Monstrux returns as a cloud and zaps the evil back into him a few episodes later. All that development thrown out the window. There's even a later moment where Jestro goes, wait, why am I still fighting the knights? I thought I liked those guys. And Monstrux zaps him again. Eventually, mind control shocks stop being necessary, as Jestro seems fully converted into the cult of Monstrux. Oof. Year 2 was a big shift. Strong as the first line was, it's easy to have too much of a good thing. So many sets with the same colors and textures in one place can get overstimulating. The next wave gives each knight's individual color much more focus, all backed by dark blue, with opaque orange now being a shared accent that unifies them all. Even the robots flip their colors. I used to think these changes were ugly for some reason, but they're beautifully balanced, with even more trans orange in case you forgot which theme this was. It feels like the Knights tech went through a second technological leap, with more solid light protrusions, sharper refined shapes, more of that space DNA, especially with new parts like that longer windscreen. Like that is a spaceship. There's still the upscaled weapons motif, but now it's more integrated, like wings made of swords and axe blades, or a crossbow-shaped turret. This new direction was a little divisive in an already divisive line, some feeling Nexo Knights was straying even further away from Castle, and away from the cohesive vision that made the first year so solid. But these might be my favorite Nexo Knights sets, partly for the combos. Instead of ultimate armor, this year each knight gets a battlesuit with even more oversized weapons, and giant shields that can hold 3 Nexo powers at once, combining some for even greater power in-game. Even Robin gets a suit, and Murloc uses a mech as a new body. I've never seen this acknowledged in reviews, but Aaron's suit can ride his oversized shield as a hoverboard, just like normal Aaron does. And you can take parts off of the vehicles to upgrade the battlesuits more. Jetpacks, extra plating, tank tread legs, a whole dragon. I love the proportions of these, they're just the right kind of stupid. And even with these parts detached, most of the vehicles still function. Axel's even gaining functionality by transforming into a flyer. I imagine similar upgrades performing differently, like Lance's wing pack being the fastest but also the worst at turning, Macy's the strongest, Clay's the most balanced and maneuverable. Some characters get multiple upgrades, like Lance's centaur legs and Aaron stacking back-mounted blasters on top of his usual firepower, on top of the turret, on top of his shield. This to me is the most fun Nexo Knights ever got. Coincidentally, not long after Bionicle had a similar play pattern, just before it died. With construction on life support, this mostly brick build take seemed to be the future, and indeed became the template for smaller Marvel mechs and one Monkey Kid mech, and well, that's really it. I could imagine a Planaribble Dauphin built this way. Oh wait, I don't have to, someone already did it. Congratulations JD, you're on TV! SCCBS, the System Character and Creature Building System, took over in 2022. But there's still the occasional oddity like this little thing released just this year. It's almost the same as the Knights battlesuits. There were also a ton of new Nexo powers in 2017, about 3 times as many as 2016, but also a few forbidden powers, which are just the tiles flipped around changing their setting to evil. These forbidden powers are spells Monstrux created to devastate the kingdom, spoil food to starve people, instantly rust metal which they use in everything now, crash the economy by turning gold into lead, evaporate the water supply, and by uniting them all at this Stonehenge-like structure that's actually a giant crown, Monstrux would obtain his dream bod.
The Stone Colossus of Ultimate Destruction!
In the meantime, his cloud form could zap life into stone statues, providing an ever-growing army wherever they went. Which makes perfect sense. With how quickly this kingdom gained Wi-Fi, of course there's a wealth of only recently abandoned ruins, reminders of a pre-Technomancy age. These stone monsters embody the past, reclaiming the kingdom from this technological future more effectively than the lava monsters do, or forest or sea monsters. As cool as those would have been, I think thematically these monsters suit Nexo Knights best. And while I don't mind the lava monster's slightly duller trans orange, the stone monster's trans light blue complements the Knights more. It's actually kinda crazy looking back. Even if reddish orange wasn't currently retired, you'd never see 2 translucent colors so close featured so much together in one theme these days. The gray, sand blue, and purple may not have been as attention-grabbing as the reds and browns, but these monsters definitely have character. All the strong chins and eyebrows. A lot of them are flyers, gargoyles, harpies, which added with all the knights having flight capabilities now, adds a new dimension to the battlefield. This part of the show started out as just more of the same, but the later episodes are pretty good. Clay goes through so much development. Infected by evil magic, he slowly turns to stone, is treated like a disability, and his friends do accommodate him, until his transformation is complete, and Monstrux gets the idea to zap Clay's statue, now controlling him like any stone monster. The Grey Knight attacks the other knights, but they can't fight back because if they break him, he'll be sucked inside Monstrux, now permanently part of the cloud, to summon and revive as many times as the evil wizard likes. And that's only like 20% of what Clay goes through this season. Another stone monster, Rowena, is also Clay's mother, and another former member of Murloc's wizard order. It makes it seem like Clay is just destined for this. There's a lot I'm not covering because it's so good. But the year ends with Clay destroying the Colossus and Rowena making off with the last piece containing Monstrux's spirit. And the show ends. Yep, they didn't make another season, not even a 44-minute special. But there were plans. Going by an outline provided by Tommy Andreasen, we know Clay goes on a quest to find himself. Macy becomes acting regent while their parents travel to celebrate their anniversary, forced into the exact role she became a knight to avoid, and Rowena and the other remaining stone monsters build a hologram projector walker thingy that brings Monstrux back to life. Again. And 3 years into this, someone finally tells the old bookworm, hey, maybe the reason we keep losing to those knights is because we're still using old school swords and sorcery, and they have computers. So if we use computers, and our computers beat their computers, we can have all the computers. So they go to an old Gothic castle and visit another former wizard, Dragoff, who came up with the idea of technomancy years before Murloc did. Before he could practice it, Monstrux attacked and cursed him, disguised as Murloc, so it looks like Murloc tried to off the guy to steal his ideas. Now awakened vampire Dregoff joins Monstrux, who promptly Borgs him. And then his kids. Yeah, the final year's villains are cyborg vampires straight out of Star Trek who assimilate machines, and people I assume, by biting them. This may be the closest we'll ever get to a 7 of 9 minifigure. Now a living computer virus, Monstrux corrupts the kingdom's precious technology, steals the Nexo powers for his new army, and even seemingly ends Murloc for a final time. This is a pretty great way for the theme to go out, if they got that far. Not only was there no show, there was only one wave instead of the usual yearly 2, with a severely slashed budget. So let's look at those final sets. The night side is more limited than previous years, but very balanced. Different sizes, different build types, there's a little of everything. Robin's all grown up now, just part of the gang, which makes it hurt more that Macy has no vehicle this year, even though this may be the most powerful she's ever looked. The aesthetic change in 2018 is gold. Gold trim, gold armor, gold weapons, gold Nexo powers, gold, 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 gold. It's a pretty typical direction LEGO themes go as they're wrapping up, and could easily be obnoxious. But I'm actually shocked by how well this goes together, the gold acting almost like a midtone next to the iconic orange. In Tech Wizard Showdown, Clay gets a build within a build, a robot piloting a bigger robot Russian doll style. Then there's one of my other favorite tricks, creating the same shapes at different scales, like this Ice Planet windscreen being an upscaled version of the printed slopes on smaller builds. Clay has those spiky golden studs that have been part of Nexo Nice's identity since the beginning, enlarged to 4 times the size using mirrored slope pieces. That's so smart. Next to the gold, a more subtle change is the windscreens. Year 1 boasted small but aggressive forward-facing arrow-shaped ones, and Year 2 elongated those shapes, but Year 3 screens are reversed, upward and swept back. They're not a new piece, just a panel from Year 2 used in a new way. They even flip one of the longer canopies, and it's just similar enough to look like an upscaled version of the panels. There's that again. See, this is what LEGO's all about to me. Even at the worst of times, with such a limited new parts budget, little touches like these add up to make a wave stand out. Heck, you can see the Knight's armor become more upright and pointy over the theme's run. This time it's the Knights looking for collectibles, the only new Nexo powers in 2018. These are parts of Murloc's code, acting as a sort of firewall to protect the Knights' remaining gear from viral infection. And they each fit one of the Knights. The sword of Murloc for Clay, the bow for Aaron, the hammer for Robin. Now, Nexo Knights has never been great at delivering these yearly MacGuffins. Only about half of the books and forbidden powers appeared in sets. That's not even enough to fill all the spaces on the Colossus's crown. Well, this time they almost did it. 6 out of 7 Murloc powers made it. Only the staff of Murloc missing. It probably would have appeared in a 6th wave, along with the proper build for Macy, and supposedly even a build for Robin and Ava to pilot together, and a big black and green final castle. Can you imagine if those things were finished? Well, what we get is pretty great given what little room they had to work, though there were also a few foil packs. These are the closest we got in 2018 to the ultimate armor and battlesuits. It's just the Knights with their helmets off, and their most extravagant weapons yet. There wasn't one for Axel, so I made one. Even found an appropriate hairpiece. I like to imagine this is their final stand once everything else is destroyed. One face I'm glad to see in this wave? Jestro! He finally gets redeemed, fighting alongside the Knights. So happy for him. But you can bet Monstrux isn't. Just imagine how that conversation would go in a proper final season. The Cyberbiters are a lot of people's favorite monster faction, and it's easy to see why. The black and trans bright green make an even better contrast to the Knights' colors. And considering how often Ice Planet and Blacktron were marketed together, how fitting is it that this theme that starts as an Ice Planet homage ends with a Blacktron homage? It even continues the color trajectory of Blacktron 1 and 2, from yellow to yellowish green to green. Finally embracing Nighton's modern technology, these monster builds feel like the Knights. Lots of combining and transforming like, yeah, these were their toys, now with a brutalist gothic twist. Even their very limited new parts are just distorted versions of the Knights molds. Corrupted armor, corrupted shields, corrupted bots, even bent glitching versions of those orange spikes. And with no new Nexo powers on this side, they did well pulling from green, morally dubious ones like Gamma Rays and Orbital Bombardment. They're not nearly as diverse as the lava and rock monsters. Again, this is half of what we usually get, if even that, and I think it kinda works for them to be more uniform and Borg-like. And almost all of them fire those nanomachine-like spiders to infect more stuff. It's a growing problem in recent themes that bad guys don't get as much stuff as the heroes do, and Nexo Nice's first 2 years did very well keeping things even. And while generally having smaller builds, they end up having more builds, adding up surprisingly close to even. But I think they still saw a problem here, because the Cyberbiters pool their forces with the surviving stone monsters in the story, so I guess you expected to play with them together. Or you could always double up. There's enough versatility that you can have multiples in different configurations. You can also mock stuff like this Mad Cat designed by Grohl or this Wyvern by Chubbybots. I modded a Spider-Man spider crawler that fits shockingly well. I even give it an appropriate Nexo power, Venom Bite. I almost tried modding the Spider Queen's arachnoid base, but felt a bit much. I've even considered many times a corrupted version of Clay's machine, with the digitized sword built like this and Monstrux on the back while Murloc sits on Clay's shoulders, but there just aren't as many trans-green pieces as I'd like, and this still works. In fact, I'd say this is the best example of a combat in the box set ever made. Point is, there are lots of ways to expand this faction, maybe even recreating some of the game's monsters. There were a ton of scrapped builds, many leaning more into a Universal Monsters theme. A malware wolf, this Count Chocula looking tank, a rocket-powered broom? None of which would be out of place in Nexo Knights, but I kinda prefer the more subtle edge of the builds we got. If I had my way, of course Nexo Knights would enjoy a complete third year, instead of being another 2.5-er like so many other themes. So yeah, that's Nexo Knights' final wave. We may never know how it ends, but I really like what we got. Nexo Knights is one of my all-time faves. It's LEGO's best tabletop RPG theme, each year offers something different, the quality is consistent, and the builds are the perfect level of complexity. Not tedious or frustrating or over-detailed like builds can be now, just packed full of gimmicks and character, and a cohesive, strong vision all the way. People sometimes dunk on this theme for just being Ninjago with Knights, which, yeah, LEGO was clearly trying to replicate Ninjago's success with some of the same ingredients, but those aren't Ninjago ingredients, or Knight's Kingdom, or even Bionicle. A group of primary color-wearing heroes saving the land from darkness, that's just a LEGO formula, and this is one of the last examples of it. Castle's presence is extremely limited today. There hasn't been another Castle theme since Nexo Knights, which was created to be a shot in the arm for an already struggling theme. And because of its reception and performance, no more Castle. We did get one really big, really expensive Castle and a GWP in 2022, but they're not selling that to kids. That's just for nostalgic adult fans with a budget, and licensed Castles don't count. But you know what? I've heard stories from people who work at stores like Bricks and Minifigs, and kids still sometimes show up asking where the Nexo Knights and Bionicle sets are. It's been almost a decade and kids still want these themes because they're watching the shows, but there are no toys supporting them. It's also funny hearing people say things like, oh, this set looks like Nexo Knights, or this theme looks like Nexo Knights, as if that itself is a criticism. I think it just shows how big an influence Nexo Knights has had on modern themes. The people behind this theme invented LEGO's modern visual direction, even steering us away a little from LEGO's curvier direction of the 2000s back into something more classic and geometric. And that might be the most classic part of it. While some didn't receive this well in 2016 and still bash it to this day, it held out as long as most original themes, and the tide is turning. People are coming around, realizing what a banging theme they slept on, how lucky we were to have this. It's like top 5 material for me. One of LEGO's last great efforts at a new action theme before Monkey Kid and Dreams, and the last Castle theme, for good or ill. But hey, Galaxy Squad was the last space theme for a long time, and space came back this year. Kinda. Maybe there's a Castle year further up the pipeline. Whether you're a Castle fan, a space fan, or both, I guess all I have left to say is give Nexo Knights a chance. Thanks for listening to my latest info dump. That's it for today. Check out my books on Amazon and itch.io, and my Patreon page to get videos like this early, your name in the credits, behind the scenes content, a patron Discord server, signed copies of Planet Ripple, and maybe even your own LEGO Rewind episode. See you on the other side. Toodles!
I bet Macy was all like, oh no, Clay, don't be evil. And then Aaron was all like, dude, what's up? And Lance just played with his hair. And Axel ate some pie. And then Murloc was all like, oh dear, Clay, whatever are you doing? And you were all like, eat sword, old man. Wah! Wah!
Yeah, something like that.